He could see the swirling waters of Little Hunting Creek emptying into the mile-wide Potomac River. 4 ships, majestic with their sails billowing in the stiff breeze, maneuvered their way along the river. George knew the ships had come from England, across the Atlantic Ocean, through Chesapeake Bay, and on up the Potomac. And now, as they sailed past Epsawasson, George could make out sailors standing on their aft decks. A thrill ran through him as he asked himself the same question he had asked 1,000 times before. Was Lawrence aboard one of those ships? George hoped his 20-year-old half-brother was aboard one of the vessels. He was tired of waiting for Lawrence to arrive from England. Of course, he had never met Lawrence or his other half-brother, Austin, but he felt as though he already knew them. His father often told him that Lawrence was tall and fair, like George, and was very well-mannered. Lawrence had also done well at Appleby's school in Westmoreland, England, which he had attended since he was 12 years old. George had so many questions to ask Lawrence, especially about Appleby School. When George turned 12, he would be attending there himself, though that would not be until 1744, 6 long years away.
Ma says to get out and come inside before you break your neck. Besides, can't you see those black clouds? You know what that means, came a little voice from the base of the tree. George sighed. It was his bossy little sister, Betty.
Me too. Up, up,
exclaimed another voice. George looked down to see his 2-year-old brother, Jack, with his arms outstretched.
Not right now, Jack, George said. It's going to rain, and Ma always wants us inside before it rains.
George slipped down out of the tree and took Jack by the hand. The 3 children hurried toward Epsawasson's main farmhouse. George could see his 4-year-old brother Samuel and his mother standing on the wide front porch. His mother was holding Charles, George's newborn brother, in her arms as she peered anxiously at the darkening sky.
"I wish your father were home,"
she wailed as she hustled the children indoors.
"Stay away from the chimney, everyone. George, make your brothers and sisters sit still."
George obediently sat his sister and younger brothers in a circle, just as he always did when a storm was brewing. He knew his mother was deathly afraid of storms, and who could blame her? Everyone within 50 miles of Epsawasson knew the terrible story. Several years before, when the Washingtons lived 40 miles away on Wakefield Farm on Pope's Creek, a tributary of the Potomac River, George's mother had invited a neighboring family to Sunday dinner. As they all sat down to eat, a storm rolled in. Thunder rumbled and lightning crackled through the air. One bolt of lightning hit the farmhouse and traveled down the chimney, across the floor, and up the leg of a chair on which a 12-year-old girl sat. The power of the strike not only killed the girl, but also fused together the metal knife and fork she was holding. Mrs. Washington had told George the story many times to warn him about the dangers of lightning and any other dangers she could imagine. George found it very difficult to have the kind of adventures he longed for while under the constant supervision of his overcautious mother, not to mention always having 2 little brothers and an eagle-eyed sister in tow. The first peals of thunder crashed, and Mrs. Washington grabbed Charles and clasped him to her chest. As the infant whimpered, George listened carefully. Was there another noise? Could he hear the rumbling of horses' hooves? He cocked his head and listened some more. Suddenly, the door burst open. Filling the doorway was George's father, accompanied by another man, a young man. George's eyes grew wide with excitement. Was this his brother Lawrence? "Gus, you shouldn't have been out in the storm," George's mother scolded, then stopped short. "Lawrence?" she asked. Mr. Washington slapped the tall young man on the back. "Come in and meet your family," he said. Soon the 3 adults were drinking tea and eating scones. George and his younger siblings sat still and listened to their conversation. Most of all, though, George just stared at his half-brother.